everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about racism, transphobia, and justice. Now I'm going to touch on the subject of the CEO assassination, but that's not what the subject is today. It's just going to be a springboard onto bigger subjects and bigger problems with our society. The assassination, and more specifically, our reaction to it, has made something really obvious to me. And once I talk about it, it should become obvious to you as well. But the guy shot the CEO, and everybody cheered for him, and everything was, and it was a big deal, and still is, kinda, I guess. But you know how these things go. It'll be forgotten next week. We'll be on to something else to talk about. But there are bigger problems in our society that we need to address. And one of the things is I looked at that situation and what it was and our reaction to it, and I thought, what if that CEO, Brian Thompson, I think his name was, what if he had been wearing a dress? What if he had everything, all the other details of the guy, his life, kids, wife, everything was the same, but at that moment, that day, he had decided to identify as a woman? How would the media have treated that? How would the American people have treated that incident? What would they have said about this Luigi fella, the guy that supposedly shot him? The suspect, the guy suspected of shooting him. So what would have changed there? Only that, with only that small, minute, meaningless change in the mind of the CEO. He identified as a woman. He's pretending to be a woman, which is what we used to call it back throughout history, all the way up until the last few years. That's what we used to call it. It used to be pretending. You could pretend to be a cat. You could pretend to be a giraffe. You could pretend to be Spock from Star Trek. Anything you wanted to be. That was imagination. It was fun. It was a great thing. Now, though, if you pretend to be a cat, you're identifying as a cat, and you're a minority, you're a marginalized group, you're special. So it's attractive for these young kids to want to identify as something, right? They used to have fun pretending to be something. Now they're identifying as these things, and this left-wing woke culture is promoting that, is making that okay. They're normalizing it. So inside that CEO's head, if he had been pretending to be a woman, the entire situation would be different, and we all know it. Or take the same thing. All things could be equal. Everything else could be the same. But, to the letter, let's make the CEO a woman of color, but she still had a wife. Let's call her a lesbian woman of color. She had a wife and kids at home. Every other detail of the woman's life be the same as the CEO that was shot. What would have happened then if that CEO had been a woman of color? Why do these meaningless changes mean so much in our society? What would have been the difference? Now, they're completely meaningless. These changes in skin color or beliefs or what they're pretending to be or whatever, all these things are just arbitrary details about the individual. They say nothing about the deeper impacts that the individual was having on society as a CEO. But if we change these smaller details of the person, then society at large would have a completely different view, a completely different opinion on the act. The shooter would have been labeled a transphobe, and it would have been a hate crime. But because the guy was a straight white dude, it was just an assassination. It was just what it was. We could be real about it. It was an assassination. The guy was shot. But if the guy had been wearing a dress and pretending to be a woman, it would have been a hate crime. Even though whoever shot the guy would have shot him for the same reason, the reason he shot him didn't change. The only thing that changed was in the victim's head. But to the media, the corrupt media, and society at large, the perpetrator would have been condemned as a hateful, a bigot, a Nazi, a fascist. And it's ridiculous. But we all know it's true. And these things need to be talked about. They need to be pointed out the next time someone is accused of being a racist or a transphobe or whatever it is. There are bigger issues to be addressed here. And the biggest issue is the insurance companies and what they're doing. We pay into this insurance our entire lives, and when we need it, our claims are denied. They fight us in court to prevent us from collecting our money that we have paid into this. And a lot of these insurance policies and stuff they're mandated by law. We have to have them. How crooked is that? By law, we have to get this insurance, but by law, the insurance doesn't have to honor our claim when we need it. Now, that system is crooked. It's set up it's just legal theft. And what is legal? It's just some shit that somebody wrote down on a paper somewhere. That's all it is. What is legal? We need to get back, in my opinion, we need to get back to a moral society. Because a legal society is immoral. We have legal theft, we have legal murder, we have legal kidnappings and human trafficking. All this stuff is legal, but heaven forbid you claim that your boat is a business expense, or you forget to claim some, a few $100 that your cousin sent you on your taxes, or whatever little bureaucratic way that they can get a few more bucks out of you or punish you. It's legal to let somebody sit in a hospital room without care or be sent home without care. That's completely legal after they've paid into this system their entire lives, busted their ass their entire lives. But it's not moral. It's not okay. And it's time for it to stop. These huge companies working in tandem with our corrupt government, which is working in tandem with this global banking system. They're all heads of the same monster. Transphobia, the same thing I touched on it a minute ago, but racism is the same thing. If that CEO had been a person of color, a completely different story. And this is what this is about. Gen X thinks. We're supposed to be thinking about this stuff, running it through our heads. This is, and realizing that this is wrong. This entire system, the way it's set up, including our society, we're condemning each other for completely normal and moral behavior. So here's a thought experiment. A black woman got off work late, right? And she's walking down the street, and a white man and a black man are walking toward her on her side of the street, and they look like criminals. They're thugs, whatever. They look like they're up to no good. Maybe one of them's carrying a baseball bat. Now, if she crosses the street, that black lady crosses the street, she's just trying to get home to her husband and her kids. She had a long day at work at the bank. She don't want to have to talk to anybody. She doesn't want to have to screw with anybody. She's just trying to get home. And these two guys walking toward her do not look safe. They don't look, they look like they're up to no good. So this black lady crosses the street and walks on the other side of the street, which is well lit, because she feels safer. Now, that's a perfectly normal thing to do. A woman just wants to get home. She's making sure she's safe. No problem. No problem at all with that. Nobody has a problem with that. But if you swap the races of the white thug and the black woman, now you got two black men walking toward a white woman in the middle of the night, or in not the middle of the night, it's dark though, and she crosses the street. Now, for some reason, she's a racist. So nothing's changed except the melatonin or the pigment in their skin or whatever. The most meaningless detail about the thought experiment is changed, but the whole thing changes, right? Now, how ridiculous is that? Now, that white woman, she's going to be called a racist. She's probably going to feel guilty about making that decision. Now, any man walking down the street toward two women, no matter color, make them any color you want. If I was walking down the street toward two black women, I would not cross the street. It wouldn't cross my mind to cross the street unless I needed to cross the street. I was going to a store over there or something. I would not be afraid to walk past two black women, two Mexican women, two white women. It wouldn't matter. Two women. Wouldn't cross my mind. But when you swap it and swap the genders, it completely changes the dynamic of the situation. And that lady is a racist. It's completely out of this world crazy. It doesn't make sense. It's illogical for someone to have to give up their safety because of their skin color. Just let every woman who wants to get home to their kids get home to their kids in the safest way possible. Why can't we do that? Without calling her a racist or a bigot or any of this stuff. So these are the things that now in our society need to be addressed, and stop condemning people for doing completely normal, sane things, and quit calling them out as Nazis and racists and all this stuff. For all we know, the white woman that crosses the street, her husband and kids are black. How can she be racist? She could have voted for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris is black, right? Or so she says. And then justice. Let's talk about justice. What is justice? A vigilante taking justice into his own hand, that's not justice, right? That's just crime. That's just murder. Okay, I can't argue with that. All right, murder's murder. Murder's bad. The government, any government really, can go somewhere else around the world and kill 10,000 people. That's not murder. They get to call that war. They get to say that's in the name of democracy. Okay? Now, why is it? Now, I'm not condoning violence in any way. I'm not condoning any kind of lawlessness in any way. This is a thought experiment again. So why is it bad for someone to walk up and shoot a CEO of an insurance company whose company has been just basically letting people die? They're murdering people through neglect and defaulting on the promise that they made to the people. But it's still murder no matter how you look at it. So why is that wrong? Why is that illegal? But it's okay for a king to do it. If a king declares a man illegal and sentences him to death, that's okay. We're okay with that. A king or a president or a prime minister or a whatever, a Congress, whatever, a governor. Why is that death penalty okay? But a man seeking vengeance, a man seeking justice in an unjust world, that's murder. And I'm not condoning the vigilante. I'm condemning the system. I'm condemning the king. I'm condemning those that think that they can hide underneath the law and throw people in prison for years and throw people, in the guillotine or the electric chair or whatever. I'm not anti-death penalty. Let them ride. Let them fry. If they deserve it, cook them. But my point is that the thought system that we think it's okay for our betters, our higher ups, why are they better than us? Why are they so much better than us? Why is a king so much better than you or me? That he gets to condemn a man to death, but if we do it, it's murder. Why do these people get to have all this power when without us they have none? Absolutely none. Zero. They are powerless. They couldn't even fix a faucet, or a lot of them probably can't even drive cars. It's just, why do they have all this power over us? And we're condemned as criminals, Nazis, racists. Think of the expletive, and they've hurled it at us. Misogynist, transphobe, all this stuff that we're called. And we've got these people in these governments around the world, Australia, Great Britain, all around the world, and they are literally slaughtering people by the thousands and by the millions. And that's okay. We're okay with that, right? But let one guy take justice into his own hands, and he's bad. Even if we're kind of cheering for him, he's bad. And that's okay. In my opinion, we're gonna have mixed feelings, mixed emotions about a guy who takes justice into his own hands like that. My problem is that we don't have mixed feelings over these governments who kill millions. That we're on board with that, right? That's okay. It's in the name of democracy. Now, let's think about this too. What if some Jew, and I'm really not sure what Hebrew Jew, I'm not sure what the right term is. I've just heard so many, but I've heard Ben Shapiro call himself a Jew, so I'll use the term Jew. So what if some Jew, some 23-year-old Jewish guy had jumped up and snuck into Adolf Hitler's camp and popped one in him and ended the war? Now, do you think that he would have been condemned as a murderer and all this shit? Hell no. And we all know it. But it's the same thing, the exact same thing. Hitler wasn't killing people with his own hands. He was ordering it done. His policies were incentivizing it, just on a bigger scale than that CEO, granted. But that CEO's policies, which he had control of, were killing people. People were dying. Something to think about. And again, I'm not condoning this stuff. What I'm saying is we need to think. Instead of all this gut reaction, and especially when we hear words like democracy and Nazi and fascist and racist and misogynist and transphobe, we need to think and dig a little deeper into the story. What actually happened here? What's actually going on? Whether you're black, Hispanic, Native American, whatever, Asian, white, whatever. We're all in this together. We need to look deeper because this race baiting and this fomenting of hatred towards each other, number one, it's just ridiculous because 99.9% of our population just want to get along with each other. But we get stirred up because of this media, getting us hating each other. They're flat out lying in most cases and distorting and twisting the truth in a lot of cases. So think about it. The next time you hear one of these terms aimed at someone to slander them and drag them in the mud, maybe the next one you listen to, maybe the person deserves it. Hell, I don't know. It may very well be justified. But you won't know unless you dig a little further into it. But I guarantee you, if we do find one here in the next year or so that is completely justified, they do deserve those terms, the next 1,000 people after them won't. It'll be complete lies and slander. So let's think about this stuff before we get emotional, before we get on one bandwagon or the other. We're all in this together. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to become a member of Gen X Thinks, I'll put that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and become a member that way. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can do so by clicking on that Super Thanks button down there. Or you can head over Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. Thank you very much for those of you who do that, and I'll put that link down in the description as well. If you're interested in Gen X gear, I'll put that link in the description too. We got all kinds of cool stuff over there at Redbubble. Coffee mugs, t-shirts, and stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. Thank you very much for those of you who do that. It helps out a lot, and it means a lot, so I sincerely appreciate that. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can head over to the channel page and email us from there. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.